Hi everyone. In this video we're going to be focusing on property investors. This is part 2 of an 8-part series, all for property investment. I'm talking about my whole portfolio of my 8 investment properties. I'm showing you pictures of the property. I'm giving you a breakdown on why I bought it, what I went through when I bought it. I'm going to talk to you about the metrics on the property, what I've gone through with holding the property and how it sits into my long-term plan as a property investor long-term. And the goal for me is to build the largest asset base possible with the lowest risk that I can get. I want to continually be able to go back to the banks and get as much lending as I require, and I want the lowest risk as I can, holding the biggest asset base. And look, you've got all these people that talk about equity growth and the ability to earn money as far as equity growth, and everything is focused on equity growth, when really, I mean, even if I build a portfolio of say 5, 10 or 15 million worth of property, and the difference in equity growth between someone else's choices in a blue chip area, and they keep on talking about 7 and 8% growth historically over a 10 to a 30-year period, even if you look at the low end at 5%. But if I'm able to buy 3 to 4 to 5 times the amount of property that other person can get, because I've got higher yields and the right lending strategy to get there, then let's say, for instance, I'm able to build a property portfolio of 15 mil. 15 mil at 5% a year is 750 grand a year equity growth. Okay, and if I went down the path of buying investment properties, let's say in Bondi, and 1 and 2 better apartments, at $1 million a piece, and renting out for 650 to 700 a week, hugely negatively geared, I never would have been able to buy the amount of property that I have using this kind of strategy. So let's say I got capped at 3, or if my income went up, let's say realistically max 4 over a period of time, the difference is 4 million worth of property versus 15 million to 20 to 25 million worth of property. So let's say 4 mil at even 7%. Okay, I'm earning, maybe 250 to 280 grand in equity growth, which is great, but I'm holding less asset base. I'm less diversified. I'm only in one particular city. I'm not spread across the country. Okay, and I don't have the high cash flow and the yield to allow me to maintain myself through all markets. So that's when I started this strategy, and I really started becoming an investor when I got my second investment property. Now, my name's Adrian Player. I'm a mortgage broker based in Sydney. Normally, I did move up to Brisbane to live in one of my investment properties, but I most likely, with what's happening in my business, I may get pulled back down to Sydney. All right, so we're going to focus on my second investment property here. You can see in the picture. It is weatherboard. It's a 1970s to 1980s build. You can clearly see at the front that it's been repainted and redone nicely. The driveway is really nice with the side access right up the right hand side to the back, which is great if you've got a granny flat approach. And I purchased this about 8 to 10 months after I purchased my first one. So my first one was December of 2020. So this was about 8 to 10 months later. All right, now this is where I'm intentionally buying for investment, as opposed to my first one, which was thinking about an owner-occupied first and then moved to investment later. Okay, so then so let's focus on this one. Where was it? So we started using Mark Navin, who's a buyer's agent. He's purchased 7 out of my 8 investment properties. Okay, and this was the thesis on this one. It was in the Ipswich Council, so you've got to be very careful in Ipswich, which is west of Brisbane, with flooding and things like that. So also mining, so you can get bad black soil and things and slippage in the ground due to the mining concerns under some of these areas. So you've got to be very careful. We liked this property, 1, because it was a 4-bedder. 2, it was sitting on, I think, about 660 or 670 square meters, which is kind of like the bare minimum you needed for a 1-bedroom, 50 square meter granny flat, which we're going to put on the back of this. It's a 4-bedder, 1 bath, and obviously you can see you can fit quite a few cars on the lot, and the front fence is nice. They've obviously updated the front facade, which we liked compared to the neighbouring properties, and we ended up getting it just under 390. Okay, and it was a hot market, very hard to get properties under the 400k mark at that time that we bought. There was a lot of competition, but we managed to swoop in on this one. And what was it? It was by the time we bought it and went through a 6-week settlement, I remember it clearly, it was about 2 to 3 weeks before Christmas. Okay, and the reason why I remember that is that I was actually quite anxious because this was my first, intentional buy of an investment property. And one, I did it all remotely, and two, the metrics on the property we liked because the rent would be around that 380 mark, which is 5.5% gross rental yield, which is good. But the settlement of the property and then finding tenants, and if you remember in this kind of area, especially in Brisbane, we didn't start really getting told about how bad the rental crisis was until say early of 2022. And this was, 2021 late. And, I was a little bit anxious 2 to 3 weeks before Christmas, thinking that we wouldn't get a tenant. But what we did was, with our property manager, we managed to get access to the property a little bit earlier because it didn't have people in it. And then we showed it early, and then we actually ended up getting over... what did we get? We got 6 people on applications, and 6 people wanted to move into the property that week, and we had no problems getting them in before Christmas, which alleviated a lot of our concerns. So that was a negotiation tactic that we used when we went through it, which is great. Now let's talk about the property a little bit. Now, very good long-term property. Right now, we bought it for just under 390. Right now, it's worth anywhere up to about say 480 to 490. Very easy, maybe tapping the 500 mark. So we've made quite a good lot of equity growth there. We really like the side access because that driveway alone is going to cost probably 15 to say 20 grand because it goes the whole length of the property down the side on the right, and we can put the 1-bedroom granny flat on the back. Now the 1-bedroom granny flats, when we initially thought we were going to put the granny flat on, was going to be anywhere around that say 300 mark. But now with the rental markets going quite high, and we do quite good finishes on our granny flats, we make sure that we separate the backyard with a fence. We make sure that we do separate water, separate electric. Okay, and we make sure that the finishes on the granny flat are just as good as a main house, that people are, very comfortable to rent that and think of it more as a long term, which is great. And two, we end up getting a better type of client normally with that and less property concerns, and we normally get a little bit slightly higher rent. So with this and the rental shortages that have been happening, it would rent every day of the week somewhere between say 330 to 350 in the current market. So if you look at a total right now, 380, let's say 390, a little bit less than that, with a granny flat, and it is coming in on the high side, somewhere around the 190 mark. Okay, so 190 and 390. Okay, so we're looking at anywhere around that kind of, high to mid fives. Okay, that's where we're sitting at. And if you're doing a 20% deposit on that, and you're looking at the rental yield that you're getting, again, you're looking at over 7.5% gross rental yield. Some of the time it'll start creeping up over the 8% mark total, which is exactly what you want. I don't care about the yield on cost price or yield on current price. I care mainly about the yield on debt, and that's how I talk in regards to my yields at the moment. So yeah, I'll go interest only on as many of the buys that I've done as I can, but what you'll notice is as I talk about the 8 investment properties that I bought, there were quite a few times, even me as a mortgage broker that's dealing with the lender, I think 4 out of the 8 times I got told something that I didn't like. So I got told that no, you can't have LMI on that. You've got to do a 20% deposit. I got told on that. What else did I get told? I got told I can't get interest only 3 times, and then after I settled, I had to go back and apply for interest only to get it applied. And you know, a lot of clients, if they can't get exactly what they want, they just say no, they stop and they don't progress forward. I'm always like, yes, I've got a contingency fund, I've got buffers on the side, I don't care, I want the initial terms that I want, but I don't care, just get the loan done and I'll fix it up later, which is exactly what I've done. All right, so this was and I was extremely happy with this one because we found it on a Wednesday. Mark Navin got into it on a Thursday, and then we closed it on a Friday afternoon. And it's very key that if you are doing this kind of strategy, you have to be willing to make a decision very quickly, because if you don't and you allow it to roll onto the Saturday, this could have easily gone for say 420 to 440 every day of the week at that time, and we know that because we had a lot of comparable sales in that kind of range. All right, so if you're not making the decision on the Thursday or the Friday, if we can hold it down, there's no way that you're not paying 420 to 440 every day of the week just because of the amount of people that would turn up on that first inspection. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what I've had to go through with tenants. So we've lost one tenant and we've added a new tenant, which is great. The rents have gone up to I think they're sitting on the 410 mark. Okay, we've done 410, but we've done a granny flat clause, and we did have the ability of getting the rent up to 430, but we had to think long term. What was the long term nature of this property? They knew that the build was happening, and you can't really get max rent knowing half of the backyard's going to get taken up. So yeah, so 410 rent, new tenant. They're going to go through a build process in the next kind of 3 to 4 months. We're getting the lending over the next kind of month. For this one, we've got all the builds and the plans done. And what else have we gone through? Really heavy rain. If you look down the right-hand side and you look at the structure of the house, on the right-hand side, it's actually a lower lying area, and it's nearly level with the driveway. But the left side of the house is higher. It's a split level. So on the right, a whole lot of rain came down one day and the water wasn't distributing properly and it was sitting, and then it seeped into the brick. Okay, and on the right-hand side of the house, halfway up the driveway, seeped into the carpet, ended up getting a little bit of mold and had a Allianz insurance claim made. And it ended up costing, I think, the insurer about $3,500. Okay, and then we had to put some what else? We had to put some grates at the back to distribute the water, so it doesn't have that same kind of flow issues in the future. We've had, I think on this one, we've had one maintenance almost straight away after we went through the inspection and letting them in the property. That was, I think, $400 for a handyman to go in and change a lot of under the taps, a couple of doorknobs, shower curtain. There was an issue with one of the taps in the bathroom, so we ended up having that. And then there was I think there was a second maintenance claim after the heavy rain, which we ended up putting in a lot of those grates as part of the insurance part. So overall, that's what we went through, that's what we've done, and this particular property, and it's very much a buy property, make sure it's got room for the granny flat, make sure that the granny flat builder checks the property prior to going under contract, which is what the buyer's agent does, and just making sure that we're trying to get it under market value, making sure that we're getting a gross rent of 5.5% while we hold it, and make sure that we can put a granny flat on the back. And then you're looking for those kind of 7.5%, 8.5% gross yields on your debt, and then you just roll it onto the next one. So hopefully this adds a whole lot of value for you. Hopefully it we talk about the concepts, we talk about what was going through my head, what I've actually gone through with holding the property. Do I like the fact that I've held this property? Have I made equity growth? What has the rents done? Everything like that. So we're just talking about that nitty gritty, and then we'll go on to the next one. So if you're liking this type of content, and it's raw, it's edited, it's uncut, please leave me a like, please leave me a comment. The goal is for you to go through the 8-part series, have a very good idea on what the total strategy is, and if you are that type of client that has 1, 2, or 3 investment properties that really wants to start going serious and get towards income replacement goals, and we're showing you a strategy from pretty much the ground up, what I've done, how I've done it. Everything was done since 2018 with the new lending laws. A lot of these guys building these huge portfolios were done pre-2018. Okay, so the lending laws were different back then. You could build much larger portfolios. It was a property game back then. Now it's a lending game. All right, so this is that's just how it is. So a lot of these people that are building these large portfolios are doing that since 2010, and great, it's worked for them, and they do have a lot of value that they can give you, but overall it's not a strategy that can be replicated or followed again, because the lending rules have changed and it's a completely different ball game since 2018. All right, so hopefully this adds a lot of value, and we'll go on to the third property, talk about that one, and give you a little bit of piece by piece on what we went through and how we did it. All right, have a great day. Bye.